Just as a short recap here, we talked briefly about the tweet that Tom King made, and then the kind of the outrage that followed the mob, and then the fact that Jae Lee wasn't aware, and kind of the hassle it caused him. And today, Tom King has publicly apologized to Jae Lee, and in private as well. So let's talk a bit about that, and not really to rehash more about Tom King in particular, but I'd like to look about the sphere around these two individuals, the people on the outskirts that, in my opinion, are kind of poking this with sticks and prodding it along. Hey everybody, this is Perch. Other videos will talk about Tom King and is he being genuine or not, and kind of all the factors around that. You've heard about the history other places, so I'll let them get to that. But I will say that good on Tom King for apologizing publicly and taking his tweets down. It was the right thing to do. It was kind of bad behavior in the industry to do that, and whether he was asked to do it, he did it on his own. That's him and his employers to speculate and deal with that. So we can only guess, and there's no point in guessing. But it was the right thing to do, and the fact that a lot of people, some may say, well, that was like the least amount he could do. No, we've seen the least amount he can do, which is what a lot of other people did, and that's where I really want to get to with this video. There's something stuck in my mind, and it won't get out, and it's this what feels like people egging on this whole situation with sticks. And I think we see a couple examples of that. In the previous video I did earlier today about Mandy the Magician, why that bugged me is it felt sinister and icky to get to both go into a Facebook group and see this, but also get some direct messages from people that were really like, hey, don't you think this is a problem? Hey, don't you think some people are being mad about this? They're going to be mad about this, right? Right? They're going to be mad. And that feels like the worst possible time. I mean, there's never a good time for this, but why in comics that are struggling do we have this stuff going on? Now, granted, I just want to say for the record, because some people will say it in the comments, I'm sure Tom King shouldn't have done it in the first place. Absolutely. Please see the previous video I did talking about this. I'm not going to repeat myself over and over. I know that's popular for some YouTube folks to just kind of grind the same axe 50 times. But, it's been said. So yes, obviously this entire thing could have been avoided. Yes. But the fact that it came out, let's take a look at what immediately happened after this tweet came out and kind of in the world that followed. Okay, so first off, despite the fact that it was Comic-Con, there's lots of other news running. Newsarama, CBR, Bleeding Cool all ran stories on this. And somebody had the comment that, hey, they're news agencies, they have to report on this stuff. Maybe. I don't know that social media, commenting and harassing and kind of this nasty stuff needs blow-by-blow commentary. But even if it did, why was it that in particular with Newsarama, they tagged it to the top screen? If you're following Newsarama, there are some kind of gross things that went on there where Tom King's initial story came out and then it was updated. And both were tagged to the latest news. They were tagged up to the top. And then Jae Lee issued a statement in return, kind of rebuking Tom King, which briefly appeared on the sites at the top in the latest news, but then quickly sunk down below. Tom King's initial "We're All Good" story, which was posted a day earlier, still was promoted higher on the site. And now we see the apology here that's there, but it was strange how this stuff was getting ranked. And today, if you just kind of look down the different stories, you see it's a weird order. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And Chris Arendt, who is a site runner for Newsarama, I don't know exactly what his title is, but then he decided a good time in the midst of all this was to go on Twitter and say, F Comicsgate. And he got a bunch of applause and, the usual suspects, the people posting GIFs of, Dr. McCoy nodding and so on. And I mean, he's welcome to his opinion, sure. But in the midst of this whole story, why? And again, you can have that opinion. You cannot have that opinion. Now, this is not a video in defense of Comicsgate by any stretch of the imagination. But we have this situation where somebody said something. It was ill-founded, which Tom King says himself that it was, he should have talked with Jae before I sent the tweet about him that put his career at risk. Just take that one sentence. It's a good sentence. It's the right sentence. It's something that I hope Tom King and others remember. But what about the others? Why this rush to put this stuff up? Why this rush to post this story and get this stuff kind of all stirring? And then Chris Arant, who's the news writer, the editor for the site, why weigh in with the F Comicsgate tweet in the midst of all this? It by association, he didn't mean it this way, or maybe he did. Who knows? But by association, it continued to drag Jae Lee into this stuff. Now, he can say, no, it didn't, except you posted 2 stories kind of inferring he was related to it. And then you post this in as well. It takes a side. Over on Bleeding Cool, we get, the story. And to their credit, and I normally beat up on Bleeding Cool, and deservedly so, to be clear, they were quicker on the mark about issuing Jae Lee's statement. It didn't have any funny ranking or anything like that. They were leading CBR and Newsarama by a significant margin in getting that material on. So that's good. But in the story about the apologies, he goes all the way through it. He ends with this interesting line, which I just find peculiar. It is worth noting that while Jae Lee didn't know about the Ethan Van Sciver Comicsgate situation, and Tom King didn't even think to check if Lee was aware, Van Sciver was aware of how toxic his own reputation could be to other creators. While Jae Lee was commissioned by Van Sciver through a third party, there was no attempt made to let Jae know of any potential issues that may arise. It's something to bear in mind when some are taking a high ground. That's a weird statement because this is a news writer. Now, Rich Johnson says he is not a journalist. It's not really clear what he is. And in his bio, he says he's the longest serving digital news reporter in the world, but whatever. Trying to weed through Rich Johnson's logic is madness in itself. But this is a weird statement. And we can do a whole video on should Van Sciver be telling people who, come into his zone that he is, potentially toxic or whatever else. That's just a weird place to go. And I guess it would turn it around and by saying, Rich Johnson has published a lot of muckraking rumors. He did some pretty, distasteful stuff a while back with a couple of actresses and kind of he's posted a number of different stories with cosplay pictures without getting consent from the cosplayers. So he has a toxic reputation. Should anyone that whenever Rich Johnson interviews somebody or goes to an event, should he let them know that he has a toxic reputation? I don't know. Somebody mailed me and said, hey, when you get creators onto this show, the Perch show, that you need to tell them that you are, Comicsgate adjacent, or, you talk to some people there. And I'll be honest, I don't know the line. I don't have the Comicsgate t-shirt, hat, or badge. It's not on my profile. It's not any of that stuff. I know that some people in Comicsgate are very angry about that fact. Does that said, if somebody wants to come on and say their piece, if they're going to do it in a respectful, normal way, then I will hear them out. That's my policy. If they come in and start spouting nonsense and flame somebody, then I won't hear them out. That's my standard. But should I tell everybody who comes onto this thing, hey, once upon a time I talked to like the Narwhal guy, and then he did a post where he solicited his crowdfunding book and he put apparently hashtag Comicsgate, and then I got a mail saying, hey, you can't support that Narwhal guy because he used a Comicsgate tag in one of his tweets trying to get his book. That's madness. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not tracking all that stuff. And if the new rule is that I have to track that stuff or anyone, I'm going to stop doing it. The channel will go away. There's just no point. That's ridiculous. But going back to kind of the topic at hand, a lot of people seemed really excited to really stir this thing on. And all the usual suspects. And by the way, on both sides, there was a lot of poking. There's a lot of, F Tom King, this is why I will burn all Tom King books. There was a lot of, this is why Jae Lee should know better. I was very disturbed by the people who are saying, we always thought Jae Lee was stupid. He seems kind of clueless. And this may be my own personal thing, as I mentioned before, but having worked with, lived in Japan, and have many Asian friends, including godfather to my daughter. I am sensitive to the clueless Asian stereotype. It is a racist stereotype that gets rolled out. Now, I'm not saying that's what everybody was doing here, and I admit I may be overly sensitive to it, but that's where a lot of the 40s, Asian people, things have come in. So a lot of those stereotypes come from. So to see a lot of people weirdly poking at this was disturbing to me, honestly, especially in the name of we are not the racist ones, so we're going to call a guy using racist language. It's just very weird. I mean, there's some mental gymnastics going on there. I think that, and I'm not making my point great, I admit, in this video, but there's a problem beyond the individuals in question. If we take Tom King, Jae Lee, Van Sciver out of this, just to take those three out for a second and look at the bubble surrounding them, whether it's news reporters, whether it's people on Twitter, other creators, fans, whoever it happens to be, there just seemed like there was a lot of people out with sticks trying to poke this thing along and kind of get a good fight going. I get people are bored having to stay home and all the rest, but that's not healthy. It also makes me wonder, just as a thing I'm pondering, if that noise went away, would we see a healthier Tom King? Would we see a Jae Lee that actually wanted to come and engage on social media? Would we see a different, behavior and kind of mode from Van Sciver? I don't know. Who these people are, their own people. But the supporting cast who like to create trouble, just like the Mandy the Magician book, this silly little book on the outside where people were like, this is going to make people mad, isn't it? He, he. Why? The only thing I can think of in my head is that people are just tremendously bored and are just looking for a fight. They're just anxious to these are kind of the weird misfit kids who would, capture bugs and put them in a jar and like shake it up real good to see if they, fight each other. That's what this feels like. And if you want to like do kind of virtual dog fighting, then, Pokemon is great for that. And if you think about it, the mechanics of that game is you're just getting your animals to fight. Just play Pokemon. That's what you can do. But in general, so I'll say this, a nice result in that I do think it was right for Tom King to apologize. Some may not accept his apology. Honestly, the only one who really, I think, matters whether he accepts the apology or not is Jae Lee. And it sounds like he has, at least in the reports, but who knows? That's between them. I do think Tom King deserves some credit for doing stuff that most do not. Lots of other people have gotten involved in all this and have not done, they've slandered people and they've not posted a single word. They've just kept on at it, show no weakness. So I give him credit for that. I hope that, what will be truly the credit, where I'll truly stand up and say, good work and applaud, is if there's not a second time or a third time. And I think for the reporters and the people surrounding all of this, you got to kind of look at yourselves. I mean, the behavior of, Chris Arant and others was just goofy. I'm sorry. It was trying to, I don't know if it was trying to make themselves part of the story or just try to keep it going. It felt a little bit like these are people who are just anxious for more. And that's the problem, at least the problem I'm seeing. Anyway, like I said, I don't know if I made my point very clear, but this is kind of what's on my mind. These people who want to stir up trouble. And I just wish that we'd get to an end of that. What do you think? Leave me some comments below. Would love to know your thoughts on the matter. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Would love to have more subscribers, more visitors to the channel, trying to grow it, trying to put something out there that's valuable where I can. But your support, your comments, your ideas make that happen, and it's a big deal to me. So thank you for everyone who subscribed and tell a friend, and I'll be fair. I'll be as fair as I can. No one can promise complete fairness. We all have our internal biases. So I'll be as fair as I can. Anyway, regardless of all that, hey, thanks for listening.